Hi guys, my name is Tyler, and I'm one of those guys. I started an affair with a woman twice my age, and she was my mother's best friend. But before judging me, please listen to my whole story. I used to be one of the best goalkeepers at my school, but at the age of 17, I seriously injured my knee. Unfortunately, I had to leave my soccer team and say goodbye to my future sports career. My injury required physiotherapy and massage. My mother sent me to her old friend Julie, who was supposed to be good. She worked in a wellness center as a physiotherapist and yoga teacher. We hadn't seen her for a while because she lived in another state with her husband, but 1 year ago they divorced and she moved back. When I saw Julie after all these years, she seemed pretty hot. She was 42 at the time, just like my mother, but I didn't feel this age gap at all. I liked her more and more with every session. She helped me restore my body and also provided some psychological support. When the therapy course was coming to an end, I didn't want to say goodbye. I could not find any appropriate words to express my feelings to her, so I just tried to kiss her when her face was nearby. Julie was shocked and pushed me away and kicked me out. I was scared that Julie would tell my mom about this, but she didn't. I considered that as a good sign and decided not to give up. Julie held evening yoga classes, and I signed up. Although Julie was skeptical, I noticed that she was glad to see me again, so I kept on attending the classes. One day after class, I heard someone crying in the storeroom. When I opened the door to check, I saw Julie sitting on the floor. I sat next to her and asked her what was the reason for her tears. It turned out that her ex-husband's new girlfriend just gave birth to their child, like just then. This jerk left Julie because she couldn't get pregnant. She told me that she felt like a useless second-hand woman. I couldn't stand her sadness and I hugged her. She didn't try to stop me. Then I tried to kiss her again, and this time she let me. And then we spent several unforgettable hours in that storeroom. This storeroom practice became a regular thing. It was very convenient. My parents thought I was into yoga, which was true, and Julie felt very ashamed because she had let down one of her best friends. But our feelings were stronger than her conscience. It was too early to tell anyone about our romance, so it just remained our little secret. 5 months went by like this. Everything was going well until one day. I returned home from my yoga class, and Dad asked me why I was so late. When Dad heard that Julie was leading the class, his reaction was really weird. He seemed confused. I stared at him, trying to detect if he suspected something. In the next class, I suddenly saw, guess who? My dad, wearing ridiculous new yoga pants and beads. His appearance was screaming that he was trying too hard. I noticed that Julie was very nervous during class and messed up a few exercises. Of course, we had to cancel our storeroom activity for that day. Since that day, my dad attended every class and pissed me off by chatting with Julie all the time. Our convenient alibi was broken. Julie and I had to hide our relationship even more carefully. We began to meet at her place. Julie made dinners, we watched movies, and our relationship grew into something more romantic. For Christmas, my family gathered a bunch of friends to go to a lake house for the holidays, including Julie. The most awkward Christmas of my life. My girlfriend was standing right next to me, and I could not even kiss her. My mom and dad asked Julie some really embarrassing questions about her personal life in front of me, and poor Julie had to lie and try to avoid the topic. One day, most of the people who were staying went fishing, and I finally had a chance to be alone with Julie. I went into her room and hugged her. She told me that she could not lie to my mom anymore. I offered to make our affair official and told her I loved her. I also promised to talk to my parents honestly. But before that was going to happen, we had a more pressing priority. We had almost gotten naked, but suddenly we heard my dad knocking on the door. I was sure he went fishing with everyone else, but nope, there he was. Julie hid me in a closet. She put on a bathrobe and opened the door. The last thing I expected to hear from my dad was, "Julie, I love you. Please forgive me." I could see through the cracks in the closet. My dad fell onto his knees and tried to hug my girlfriend's legs. Julie pushed him away and yelled, "It's in the past. Move on, David. Stop stalking me. I don't need this." Then she asked him to leave because she was going to take a shower. Dad said they could take a shower together like in the good old days. Yikes! Okay, at this point I had had enough, but I was too shocked and disappointed to make a scene. Meanwhile, my mom arrived just in time. Thank God. She saw my dad on his knees in front of Julie. Usually, my mom is an epic drama queen, but this time, she didn't yell or cry. Her reaction was very strange and kind of passive-aggressive. She told my dad that she needed his help in the kitchen, and they left. It was shortly afterward that we heard the sounds of breaking dishes and her screaming at him. I left my sanctuary, quickly got dressed, and demanded an explanation from Julie. It turned out that she had dated Dad back in college. They had been together for 6 months or so, but then Dad left for spring break, cheated on Julie, and they broke up. Now, after all these years, this dummy regrets it and wants her back, behind my mother's back. He was going to yoga not because he suspected me, but because he had a thing for Julie. I was very offended that Julie didn't tell me about this earlier. You know, it's kind of disgusting to learn that your girlfriend is your father's ex. I yelled at Julie for the first time in my life. She suggested we break up, and I agreed because I was too angry to think clearly. I went for a walk around the lake, and when I got back home, Julie was already gone. The remaining part of this holiday was a nightmare. My parents didn't talk to each other, but pretended in front of their friends that everything was fine. By the time we arrived back home, it was clear that my mom hated my father. She also stopped calling Julie and inviting her to our house. Dad was very gloomy. I couldn't tell them that I had seen everything from the closet. I decided to detach myself from this drama for a while and focus on my studies. During my actual yoga classes with Julie, I realized that it was a great substitute for my career in soccer. So I signed up for yoga instructor training, hoping to open my own studio someday. I tried to go on dates with girls who were my age, but I was still thinking about Julie all the time. One evening, I got back home from another bad date and saw my miserable father on the couch drinking beer and watching TV. I looked at him silently and realized, if I don't do something about Julie immediately, I will probably end up like my dad. So I bought daisies and vegan cupcakes and ran over to Julie's place. When she opened the door and saw me, she began crying. She had also missed me that whole time. All those months of separation seemed to melt away. For the first time, we spent a whole night together. I began to stay at Julie's place pretty often. I lied to my folks, telling them that I found a new girlfriend on Tinder. They didn't care much because they were focused on their own issues. One morning, I was making breakfast at Julie's place when someone rang the doorbell. Julie looked through the peephole. It was my mom. I had to hide once again. I went into the bathroom and Julie opened the door. She tried to tell my mom that she was busy, but my mother burst into the room and insisted that they needed to talk. She began apologizing to Julie for her behavior and her stupid husband. She hugged Julie and said that she cherished their friendship. But then, my mom recognized my jacket on a hanger. She asked Julie what her son's jacket was doing in her apartment. Julie had a panic attack and couldn't say a word. I couldn't stand it any longer and exited the bathroom voluntarily, wearing only an apron and pants. I answered, "My jacket is here because Julie is my girlfriend." As you probably already guessed, my mother freaked out. She grabbed Julie's hair and started screaming like crazy. I had to separate them. Then I asked my mom to leave while she continued threatening Julie. I had to take my mom home because she couldn't drive in the state she was in. She was silent and gloomy the whole way there, and during dinner, she told my dad the news. He was very surprised and looked at me with respect, which pissed off my mom even more. Meanwhile, I texted Julie, "Let's move in together." And she answered, "I'm in if you're in." I announced to my parents that I was moving out and walked upstairs to pack my bags. My mom tried to forbid me from leaving, but I was already 19 years old by that point, and she couldn't stop me anyway. My father hugged me goodbye and called me a lady killer. Ugh, yikes. Julie and I had a great weekend unpacking my stuff and planning our future. But then she received a call from her work. My mother had told everybody that Julie had seduced her innocent 17-year-old son at the wellness center. Her boss wanted to avoid any legal implications and forced Julie to quit voluntarily. I tried to call my mom, but she said she would only speak to me again if I left Julie. Today, I'm 25 and Julie is 50, and we're still happily together. That scandal was a sign for us to move on. So we moved to a bigger city and opened our own yoga studio. Of course, sometimes strangers confuse me for Julie's son, but I'm used to it and I don't care. We are going to adopt a child together soon. As for my parents, they divorced immediately after our relocation. My mother still doesn't talk to us, but my father is trying to maintain a relationship. He sends gifts on every holiday and leaves tons of comments on our social media. I guess he still loves my girlfriend, and that's why I don't